Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Trusted Covenant. My name is Minor Ramos, and I have a guest with me today. Let me introduce you to Monica Roper. And Monica is one of our coaches, within the organization, within the let's just call it the group. But Monica's experience is as a Dale Carnegie trainer, is specializing in management training. Let's say, leadership. Let's talk about um, uh, coaching and communication. So I think when we think of what you're able to do, Monica, it's really about relationships and the way that people relate to one another, right? So why don't you just say hi to the group, let everybody know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive in.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, it is great to be here. I have really enjoyed my time getting to know Minor. He and I have a shared passion for helping people grow and develop. And where we kind of diverge is I am all about the people. I'm about how the people talk to one another, how they lead one another, how they resolve conflicts with each other, even how they sell things. And historically, in my mind, it's been like, money, it'll take care of itself. And so I was so grateful when I connected with Minor, who obviously, as you all know, has his expertise in that area, as well as just being a good egg. And I've enjoyed getting to know him as a person.
Hmm.
Glad to be here today, Minor.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. And it's really, really exciting because there's just a lot of stuff going on in the world. And, we need some positive conversations. We need to get back to some sort of normal, if you would. And so, in Trusted Covenant, we've documented the journey of how God is just, taking us and held us through the loss of our 25-year-old daughter, Kayla, and that journey of leaving a legacy. So legacies are really, really important. That part is what we do. But as you know, the moment that you start talking about anything that has to do with our demise, dying, leaving Earth, going into eternity, suffering, hospitals, all of a sudden people are just like, oh, right? Like that's not that's not cat videos, or you see the stuff, that stuff makes you happy, and this stuff is just weighty. It's just kind of heavy, right?
Yeah, I agree with you, Minor. And I think sometimes even, who knows, maybe that's why I've kind of avoided conversations about money and finances in the past, because I have felt ill-equipped. It's not something I studied in school. It's not something I studied in the business world. My job was just go to work, earn the money, and in the past, like hire someone else to manage that money for me. And being a young person, was a younger person, not having children, like I didn't think about really my legacy per se. A lot about my legacy with people, because remember, I'm people oriented, but hadn't really thought about my legacy financially and what that would look like. But since I recently got married, at 47, now it's like, okay, now I have people that are responsible. I'm responsible to care for them financially if something were to happen to me.
Mhm.
And so I have been incredibly grateful to really begin that conversation with you, kind of have your support to begin that conversation with my husband, especially because he has two grown children. And so this has been interesting. And I was fascinated to see how you and I like began that conversation, because I think it's fair to say that when you and I first started talking about legacy and what does financial planning for like the long term, and not just the finances, but the legalities associated with financial planning, I was a big zero, right? I'm not embarrassed to say it, right? I didn't even know what I didn't know. So, I bet I'm not the only one. I bet there's a lot of people on your channel that are themselves experts in other things.
Mhm.
Maybe they're experts in construction. Maybe they're experts in engineering. Maybe they're experts in theology. But when it comes to money, they were like me and figured it would take care of itself or something else. So for those folks, like the people like me that are like, money, death, money and death together. Where do you start? Walk us through that.
Yeah, the starting point is really where we just have a conversation. I'm going to show you a couple of things in just a minute, since you mentioned that. But I'd like to think of legacy planning a lot like, let's simplify it to like when people first start dating. How weird would it be if somebody wants to meet the other one and immediately ask them a question like, how do you want to be remembered? Oh my goodness, like, what do you mean? You don't even know me. Like, do I like coffee? Do I like, do I like tea? Or, let's talk about something simpler. So it's a little bit of like that, a conversation, get to know one another, and try to figure out where the conversation will naturally appear. And so what I'm going to show you is I'm going to take you to our app. I'm going to show you how the conversation can easily start when it comes to money, because like, the one thing people are actually a little bit more in tune with is the fact that there's money issues. There's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe they just don't understand. And one of the things we talk about in Trusted Covenant is to get to the point where you say, I will never worry about money ever again. Like, those are really good transformational words. I will never worry about money ever again. But we can't get there until we understand how did how did that start? Everybody has a money persona, right? And I like to think about this like, so like in like the concept of dating game. So when we start talking about money, I like to know, where did you in your childhood first understand the concept of money? Was it when maybe you asked mom and dad for something, and what the first words they uttered is, "We can't afford it. Let's see, or we'll see," or "Yes, this, we can do this." That forms all of the later on in life, the way that people see money. And then let's talk about churches. Where in the churches did we first hear about money? And is it an easy conversation? And it really isn't. You know how weird people get around money when when in the church? Like, I feel, I'm not a minister and I don't, preach from the pulpit, but I feel so bad for some of the people who have to explain like the concept of giving, right? Because it's
Mm.
almost like you have to like take away all this baggage that people have before we can have the conversation. So, and I'm going to tell you one more like way that I think people can connect with this, and I'm going to show you the app. So I was in a men's group. Let's leave the name of the church out, but this is when I was in Florida, and we sat around. This is like 6 o'clock in the morning, men's breakfast, and we're talking about challenges for how to be better husbands, better fathers, better citizens, better employees, better business, and people. And the conversation was, what's your view of money? And I'm telling you, around this table of 10 to 12 guys, it was an awkward conversation for a lot of people. Like, it was really odd. Like, they just did not want to, so you had things like, oh, well, I trust God, and he's going to take care of me. Or, I don't think about money because the love of money is what? They, the root. And a lot of times they don't say the whole thing. They say is the root of evil. but it's the root of all kinds of evil, but it's the love of money. So there's like misconceptions, different views. Maybe one or two people had a really good grasp on what that is. So let me go back to your question. Your question was, how do we have, how do we start this conversation when we have the opportunity, to work with our clients? So I'm going to go ahead and let me know, can you see like what I'm sharing here on the screen? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is, I think, I love technology and I love technology partners, people who can work with me to help me be better for my clients. So this is it's a way for someone to just have a financial snapshot. Literally is, they would go in here, they'll sign in. I'll tell you about how this actually works, but here are some of the benefits. People are, stressful about money. So relieving financial stress. Now that's an easier conversation to have than talking about legacy planning, right? Potentially creating a budgeting strategy. And I'd like to use the word more of a spending rhythm strategy instead of a budget, because most people have been taught by gurus and all these other, people that know about money, you got a budget and it's got to be very strict. And so I like to teach people about a spending rhythm so they can get in tune with how they spend money, think about their money persona, think about how they've been trained about money. And then we go into, gain access to a financial program that's tailored to their needs, because you know what? I don't like when people put everybody in one box. It is an awful thing to do to someone to say, well, this guy in the 80s made a bunch of mistakes in real estate. And, so his whole demeanor is the way that he talks about this kind, this aspect of money. It all comes through. And so it's easier for people to just say, look, why is a financial wellness important? And Monica, in your world, you talk about relationships. I mean, if you want sometimes relationships, like this is where it's at, right? So a financial wellness, it is really a crucial as a stable, fulfilling life. Now, here are some of the features. So some people are readers, and some people are not going to do well with me, sitting with them for 20, 30 minutes explaining a lot of things. They want to read, these are like more of the logical people, right? Then you have again that budgeting, taking control. Now see, the most people don't have a money problem. They have a spending problem. They have an understanding the money problem, because the majority of people are able to like find some kind of savings when they start to realize and start paying attention to their money. So I talk about four different major numbers. You got to know your income, you got to know your debt, you got to know your available discretionary income, at the end. Those are some of the things that you have. And so some of the ways that we do that is your calculators. So there's a way for people to start, within the app. They'll be able to start looking at some of these things that allow them to make those financial decisions. Now, as you know, there are a lot of, I mean, there's so many ways to get in front of somebody who can do the budgeting for you. But I like to empower people and give them the tools so that they can do this for themselves. Because if you don't teach them, then they're not going to pass this on to their children. It's all about leaving the information towards the for the future generations. Now let's talk about coaching and support. I love this part because this is kind of where you come in. Like your world is about management, about communication, about leadership, and one of the things that we're able to do is people can connect within the app, to our coaches. Obviously, at this point, I'm the main one. And then I have a debt tracker. So we're talking about like the four major numbers. One of the things we want to do is understand where you are with your debt, because that's one of the components. So all your expenses, your income, your debt, and your net worth. Um, And then we have some decisioning tools. So this is a lot of information that people can really dive into, but I really can't. It's easier to have a conversation with where do you want to start? Like you have all these different options where you can start having these conversations. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some courses and some the financial wellness score is I think where everyone should start. So the financial wellness score is the compass for the financial health. Now they're going to get a snapshot of the financial well-being, and then we're going to go into personalized coaching and get some expert insights. So here's the thing. When you connect within the app, you'll have the ability to connect with me, schedule a call right within the app. There's information here, my phone number, my website information, but I like to show people. Now let's pause for a minute. So let me, because I said a lot, and this is some of the ways that I could get people to start the conversation. But let me pause for just a second before I go into some of these courses and some of the other tools that we have. So how does it like sound to you so far? Of course, there's a lot to it, but I just want to give you some insight as to how we can have that conversation started, which is a lot easier than talking about legacy planning.
It's one of the things is like it's a reminder to me about the breadth of what there is to know about finances, how many things are involved in it. And it reminds me of why I wanted to engage with you as my coach leading me through this, because historically, I don't have that passion. I don't have that natural curiosity. Like even as you were speaking about some of these different topics, my brain being such like a people oriented brain, I was thinking like about these different conversations and thinking, okay, well, to talk about debts, man, that is really tough for couples, especially couples who are maybe dating or newlywed to talk about their financial world. And so my brain immediately went to not just what are my debts, but what are the realities, the challenges that couples face when they start talking about these things. And thinking back to statistically how money is the number one thing that people cite as a reason for getting divorced, right? So my brain is people, 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 people. If you notice a pattern, it's people, 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 people. But yet where you're so gifted is bringing it back to, let's do the numbers. Monica, this is about numbers. And by the way, that is definitely who I married. I married somebody who like lives and dies by Excel because, he works in planning and analytics and all that. And
Yes.
it's just like you got to I personally have to have somebody like nail my feet to the floor to open up my bank accounts and say, okay, what are my debts?
Hmm.
What is my credit debt? I know I've got a car loan, but because of me starting to work with you, I actually went online to find out how many months I
Hmm.
had left on that car loan, which I literally didn't know. It could have been 2 years, it could have been 3 years. I found out I have 6 months left. Yay. And then my car's paid off. But like, I don't think I even knew like what are all the sources of debt I might have had, and I needed that moral support, that kick in the pants, if you will. Think of it
We
as moral
call it.
support, but loving moral support to check it
We
out. And
Isn't it funny? We do call it accountability, but it's actually what people are asking for. Hey, would you hold my hand?
yeah.
Would you
Oh my
sit
God.
and show me, right? How do I get these numbers, right?
Well, I mean, and I remember our very first conversation when we were talking about like legacy planning. And I remember I'd watched one of your videos and you talked about like these are the 5 elements of a legacy plan. And it might be 4. I'm not exactly sure now. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't even know. I don't know what an advanced directive is. I don't know what like those were the things I was saying to you. I was like, back up the truck, Miner.
Yeah.
Think of me as like expert on people, novice on finances.
Yeah.
Right? And you were like, "Wait, you really didn't know that? You're smart." Like, "I know, I'm totally smart, but money is not my expertise. Finance is not my expertise." But
Yeah.
you've lived it and breathed it your whole career because 'cause you're passionate
And
about it.
you know what I like about what you just said is the connector to that is education. So let's just
Yeah.
talk about like how does it look from an educational standpoint and how we dive into that because the like I was self-taught. Like I was in the mortgage industry and the banking industry for 2 decades. Excuse me. The what happened is that it wasn't like someone said, "Okay, now let's sit down and talk about how do you put this financial plan together." No, it was here are their debts, here are their obligations, this is the kind of house they want to buy, make it work. Okay, you know how if I probably looked at 10 to 20, I would say closer to 20,000 loans in my time, like
My
overall.
gosh.
Right, and so that gave me an opportunity to see inside people's I like to call it, that spending rhythm. There's some of their
Yeah.
characteristics. Some of them are savers, some of them are spenders, some of them are investors, some of them have lots and lots of things going on, and some of them are just like, "Nope, I just want 2 debts, that's all I can handle." And so you had all this stuff that you can see, and then I realized that really is so I like the courses. One of the aspects of the app is to just look at the courses. So what I want to do with people is I want to ask them, look, what's important to you? Like what do you want to read about? What do you want to learn about? If you take this course, it's a very simple course, but let's talk about personal finance. Like that's an easy one. You can start with personal finance and go through some of the basics, some of the principles, but then you're learning because I think that somebody said and you're Dale Carnegie, so you probably know this code better than I do, but like, tell me something and I'll remember it. Show me something and I'll learn it, and then like if I actually engage with it and process it, then it's in my heart and I could teach it to others, right? I probably butcher that, that
But we tracked with you. We all tracked with you. I think it was like the best 3 quotes I've ever heard, and you just kind of made a mashup. It was
yeah,
beautiful. It was
exactly.
good.
Put them all
Totally
together.
good.
But so go back to the education. So look at this. Teaching financial literacy to children and teenagers. Now,
And that's huge. That's huge.
Florida became one of the first states to mandate this. And
What do you
now
mean mandate it?
yeah, yeah, the school system in Florida requires that in high school they have
Wow.
some kind of literacy, financial literacy, in high school. And I love that.
Fascinating.
I love that, and it's becoming a lot more normal. I think I don't know this for a fact, but I bet you there's some other states that follow suit. Now, look at this. Understanding the tax laws and minimizing tax liabilities. Oh my goodness. Do you know that 33 to maybe 40% of someone's personal income has a lot to deal with that subject alone? Right. And then
Yeah.
so I was explaining this to my son. He works at a local coffee house and he gets his check and he goes, and we start going through the numbers, right? We want to talk about them. So how much did you get paid? How many hours did you work? And he goes, wait a minute. um, where's this money going to? Bro, that's the government keeping their portion of your. Did you know that you had somebody else you got to feed too? And he's like, but how is that fair? I said, no, you don't even understand. Like that's just the beginning because then what happens when after you made that money, you got to pay your taxes. You go and you buy some food and you're paying taxes on that. And then if you circle all the way through, we're just overtaxed. So there's one way to do that. Um, Look at this, the strategies for reducing household expenses and increasing income. Like I grew up in a family where my mom, we had a large family and she just, I don't know how she did this, but on a very limited income, she would just feed people from the neighborhood. She would make it work. So those are some of those strategies. Um, Filing requirements and deadlines for different types of taxes. I mean, so for business owners, we deal with a lot of business owners. And one of the things is like it's crazy. They don't realize that if they don't do that, somebody's going to come knocking on the door, right? Uh, we
And
have,
even like estimated taxes, that was a huge thing that surprised me when I transitioned about 7 years ago from being like a full-time employee of a company where they handled all the taxes for me. I transitioned to being a full-time contractor.
Mhm.
And it was it was a very big surprise when I found out I had not filed the quarterly estimated taxes. And in my people-oriented brain, I was just thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know like how much my total income for the year is going to be. How can I estimate? Well, the government expects you to figure it out.
Yeah,
And after I got that like first penalty, it's like, oh, okay, better figure that out. But it's like, hey, how cool if I had like taken that little class right before rather than learn the hard way.
yeah.
Very
And
important.
that is, it's just, it just brings it home, and it's amazing how that, that comes together. Um, Here's another one, estate and gift tax planning. And I know that, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not giving anybody any gifts. I'm barely making it on my own. But you know what? What we do is, as of today in 2024, and when it comes to legacy planning, if you are a single earner and you have over $13 million in assets, you're gonna have to have this conversation, this gift, the estate and gift planning, and it's about 27,000 if it's a combined, family. One of the things that I'm very familiar with and I understand is understanding life insurance. How do you use the life insurance for legacy? How do you use it to protect, the children, your family? Look at this one, student loan refinancing. It's crazy out there. Like we can't even begin to that. I like this one, money management for women. You know why? Because most of the time, consistently, when I meet with couples, she's the one writing the checkbook, like the making the payments. Now, I don't want to generalize because that would be wrong, but I'm just saying what I see happening most of the time. And so, money management for women, or maybe somebody that lives alone, maybe somebody grew up, that was married and the husband did everything, but now she doesn't. She needs to have that, that transition. Obviously we have financial, I don't like, I know it's estate planning, but I call it legacy planning because estate planning is more for the stuff. Legacy planning is more about the individual, and that's one of the things that that's the end goal that, we'll have. Then we go into financial planning for women. So let me pause here for just a second. So in the baby boomer generation, they're out. They used to say there were about 10,000 people retiring every single day or turning 65 every single day. That number's
Hmm.
gone to about 13,000. Some estimates are maybe close to 15,000. So imagine 15,000 people turning 65 every single day. What ends up happening is if you have both husband and wife, statistically, the men will leave Earth first. Statistically, right? More often than not. So financial planning for women has become a big topic in retirement planning. And what we like to say is it's lifetime income. It's turning whatever their assets are into a lifetime income opportunity for women. So we go into the we're almost done here. I mean, let me show you understanding student loans. Now, it's complicated for people to understand, what options there are right now. All right, so planning for retirement, paying for college, personal finance. Oh, look at this one. Personal finance for military families. You know how many distinct challenges military families have. When I was in mortgages, I used to have a power of attorney or a financial power of attorney in order for the wife to be able to get into the home because he was gone, right? Interesting. Like those are the things, and they have so many more things that they're dealing with. Understanding employee retirement plans. I'll just say one 30-second explanation of this. The 401k is one of the most misunderstood instruments. It was a tax code that was intended for high potential earners in the job market. Now, I don't know about, I'm going to talk about, what I mean, when my grandparents lived, they had the companies gave them the retirement, right?
Okay.
Somewhere in the 70s and 80s, somebody lost their mind and decided, let's just make the employee carry all that risk. And then they're going to, the employee is going to invest all this money. And then when they get 30, 40 years later, when they retire, they're going to get not only taxed, they're going to pay for the fees for the money manager. And then now they got to live on maybe two-thirds of what they were making before, but they took on all the risk. Imagine if someone retires when 2008 happened, or
Oh,
or
that's a bad time.
or mid 2020, right? So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so much to this. So here's another one: taking control of credit card debt, setting financial goals. Then we go back to the insurance, introduction to insurance for your family. This is a good one: financial planning for your first home. I mean, I mean, I've talked to so many people over the weekend about like what are the what's the young generation going to do about having a home? It's crazy. By the way, this is a little disclosure: do it yourself credit score repair. There's a lot of companies out there that sell this stuff and then just run with your money. Maybe just getting educated about it is one way to do it, and then building your emergency fund and building your credit. So let me pause on the courses. It's one more thing that I want to show you. But when you look at all this stuff, what I want to do is I want to know from the person I'm talking to which one is more important to you, because I want to get off of my agenda. And these are the ways that I can lead them to the things that they want to know. Because once they're in here and they decide which is the most important thing, well, then the rest of it is like an easy flow, because then we have our first conversation. So what did you learn? What were some of the challenges that you came across? What would you like to change? How do you see the future? How do you see yourself moving away from your current circumstances into a more desirable, more like stress-free life? Maybe your mental health is a little bit increases, right? You're feeling better about yourself, you're sleeping better, maybe you're exercising better, because simply you tied all this stuff that that concerns people, money, and then we go from there to the other stuff. So let me pause for a second before I go into the tools, and then and then we'll be able to go through that and go through the rest of it. So we'll finalize the session here. So what were your thoughts on that? Just giving people what they want and having them flourish from there.
Um, yeah, it's fascinating to me, really, just how much there is that's possible to be learned, and how much, myself, like as your client at age 47, what a different kind of client I am than, if I remember being 21 and I got married to someone who was 25. And we were that couple that was trying to buy their first home. We were dealing with student loans. Our debt to income ratio was significantly different. And, to learn those different things about budgeting. It was a process, and we learned a lot through trial and error. We learned at that time through, people who were older than us that had more experience than we did. I mean, I think back to even our first home purchase. It would not have happened if my mom hadn't said, Monica, the housing market is going to take off. You guys need to get in. And I remember we bought, what is it, half of a duplex.
Mhm.
So that's what we bought.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, 3 years later, the thing had doubled in value, because that was at the beginning
Yeah.
of, leading up to 2008. And, it's just a different thing to be able to have this kind of information available at our fingertips, and to have it as a tool to engage, whether it's like, you know, myself, like I'm feeling very curious about this. And like it's a tool I can bring to my husband and say, dear husband, where do you want to start? What information would support
Mhm.
you with your adult kids? And oh, look, I'm back to people again. It's just, a way to connect and really basically learn and be open in a non-judgmental space,
And
not,
at your own pace. And so
yeah.
the courses were more about the educational aspect of it, but then the calculators, and look at the decision tools. So, buying a home, this is a decision tool. Like, what do you need to do? The decision tool, buying a car. So those are, remember, we started this whole conversation about how do you have conversations with people? Where do you start? Well, you talk about the things that are important to them. I know, but without a shadow of a doubt, that most people are they'll have an easier conversation talking to me about their new car purchase or the car they want to buy or the house they want to buy better than they're not going to talk about building wealth, because building wealth takes time and it takes discipline. But how much discipline does buying a car have? Sign on the dotted line, right? Like, so, I mean, you can make an argument. So what I'm looking at is people have the ability. So you had all the courses, the connection to the coaches, but then look, um, they can supercharge their financial decisions with our library, an extensive library of financial calculators. From retirement savings to loan repayment, our platform offers a wide range of calculators to aid in their financial decision making. Now, we're probably running out of time. We probably don't have time to go through all of this. But what I will say is the easiest way to do this is to simply go into here and click on sign up. Now, it's remember we talked about numbers. It's time to make a $27 a day decision. Okay, let me explain. So this program is available to people for $99 a year. Okay, a
Okay.
year. Now that comes out to roughly about $8.25 per month. But I like to break it down to the bare minimum. If you were going to spend 27 cents a day to have access to this, like that is like reduction to the ridiculous, right? Like, and so the easiest thing to do is actually, people will go onto academy.trustedcovenant.com. This is our connection. They'll sign up and they'll have a 7-day free trial, because what we want to do is empower them. And look, I know there are people that find their way around this. Let me tell you how they do it. They'll sign up for the 7-day free trial. They'll go through and do as much as they can within those 7 days, save their financial snapshot. That's wonderful. Look, if that's all you got out of it, wonderful. And then if you never see this again, that's totally okay. My feelings are not going to be hurt, right?
Okay,
But
I've got to interrupt you because my guess is that if people do not go into this with a different intention, they are going to be more like this girl over here who signs up for a subscription on Amazon,
uh-huh.
9.99 a month for Paramount TV Plus, and then forgets. And
Yep.
then it renews because we are a people that are not disciplined about our money. So this is me admitting me about this type of thing and this type of investment and saying, if you are like me, let me give you like quick tips from the learning mind. Because when I'm not doing people coaching and communications coaching, like my background is in learning and talent development.
Right.
Here, my friends, is how we approach this. We say to ourselves first, what is my intention? Why am I going to go to this website at all and click sign up? Well, we got to answer that question. Why is it important to us to invest? Is it a week? Is it a month? Or is maybe 2024 the year that we say, I am going to manage my financial household in a way that honors God, lowers my stress, and makes me a better steward for those around me. And for those reasons, with that intention in mind, we say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to use this as a resource. I am going to learn. I am going to be open. And I'm even going to approach this from a faith perspective that says, hey, even if I'm afraid, I'm going to take that to God and say, God, open my mind to what do you want to teach me about my money? And by the way, it's not my money, it's your money, Lord. So, how do you, God, want to guide me to use this as a resource to make me a more effective steward for you, make me more effective, lower my stress about money, and then how to do that? Now, with that in mind, unlike that Paramount TV Plus subscription, that's a true story, happened last month. Unlike that happened to me last month, we log into this with intention, and then we literally book time with ourselves on our calendar. We
Mm,
make an appointment with ourselves where maybe it's every Monday night. We spend maybe an hour. We go to this website, and with intention, we devote our time and our thoughts. And from a learning and talent development standpoint, that's how we get something out of this, you know. And now I'll take my learning development hat off and go, okay, Myra, back to you. But I
no,
just had to get that in there.
I gotta give it to you because that's the part that you're so good at. It's the people connection and understanding human understanding, learning, connections, the way that people relate to certain things. And the thing that I'm learning, and I'm really trying to learn this, is that I'm so methodical and a lot of times too logical to be able to go back and go, wait a minute, how does this impact the person? This is one of the reasons why I want to take the uses as a guide. Like, which one of these is more important to you? But then you gave every listener today the biggest takeaway is like, what's your intention? If if we have on average, we probably have 5 to 10 subscriptions. Some of them, they're probably stale and stagnant, right? And it's like, whoa, So, what I want to do is I want to circle all the way back to the first question that you had for me, which was, how do you start the conversation? And that's the idea is that we go through the things that matter to people more. We go into this like that concept of dating. So where are you from? Do you come here often? What's your favorite dish? What's your favorite, drink? And then you start having a conversation. That's what this is. This is what this is, right? Now, when we go to Trusted Covenant, the actual website, there people are going to have the opportunity to start looking at, a little bit more of like the legacy planning. But there's some articles here. Some people again, and this is another way for them to log into the website. Again, remember, the website is free for 7 days, $99 a month, 825. Sorry, $99 a year, 825 a month, or $27 a day, and they can log in right from here. Try the app, but then there's a few resources here too, right? So if you're like, you know what, I still don't. There's maybe just some things you want to check out. There's a 401 calculator. I mean, so many different things that people look at. Here's a mortgage calculator, right? And so there's a lot of stuff that we can do to connect with each other and really just learn how to have that transformation. And it starts with a conversation. That was the whole thing that I wanted to convey. Going back to it starts with a simple conversation, and if people are willing to have that conversation, and look, it's 2024. We're gonna have an election year. There's wars around the world. There is uncertainty with jobs. There's uncertainty with finding the right type of employees for filling positions and jobs. Artificial intelligence, could it potentially be replacing some of those jobs? Like, housing through the roof, inflation through the roof. Look, I don't want to sound like a negative. I don't. maybe I shouldn't say it, negative Nelly is what I've been saying. I don't know if that's proper or not, but you guys forgive me for saying it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to focus on the negative stuff because the first thing that we said was we trust in God's provision. We know that He provides. He is our provider. Then we go into the next principle, which is the principle of contentment. You know, do you realize how much we have already? If we could just start to be content with what we have instead of coveting whatever everyone else has, that bigger house, the bigger bank account, the bigger business, that all this stuff. Look, come back and just rejoice in the beauty of God's provision and be content with what He's got. But then the third one is this is where it all comes together is that concept of finishing well. So we work for 30, 40, some people are working 50 years in their lifetime. So what do you do with that? I mean, think about an individual. To me, I think the most important people right now are it's to grasp the stories of the people that are retiring. You know how much knowledge and experiences is going with them away from from the job force. Like there are stories, there's a wealth of knowledge that's going with them to some retirement community in Florida called the Villages, so they can party it up and whatever, whatever. It's like, listen, tell your story for generations to come, for posterity, so that people will get to know what were your values, what were your virtues, what were your passions, your desires for changing the world. How did you want to see the world? And that's the concept of finishing well. So we went pretty much full circle. And I love the fact that we had almost an hour conversation about this, Monica, with one question. The question was, how do we start to have that conversation? So let me throw it back to you. Give me some final thoughts. And this has been first of all, thank you so much because this has been I've learned so much from you about people, and I need to do more of that. I hope that I was able to at least show you some things that happen here in the financial world, which I'm so passionate about. But give me some final thoughts, and we'll
Yeah.
close it out.
One of the things that just amazes me is how much information is out there and how accessible it is, in the sense that I'm trying to remember how long ago it was that we actually first sat down and I said, okay, Minor, let's do this. Let's start this conversation. And true story, I have not gone through all these different pages of the website and didn't know even, how much learning I could be doing on my own. Being a very people-centered person, having somebody sit with me and walk me through it, that was, very valuable in this area that is not naturally my passion. Like I Google research things all day long about people and learning and organizational development and psychology and trauma, all these things. But, in this area where it's not naturally my passion in the past, like it's great to have somebody to sit with me, walk me through it. And so one of, I think, like the final thoughts or final takeaways that I have for your listeners is that if other people are coming to this content, and it's not naturally their passion, not naturally their area of comfort or interest, I would say, hey, find a buddy, find somebody else, whether that's asking on social media, hey, I want to learn more about finance. Is there somebody who wants to walk this journey with me? Because maybe you've invested in accessing this tool. Like, how cool would that be to find that other person to have that accountability? Because now like Minor has invested his time in walking us all through the website, but to then, engage with Minor for the sake of getting those numbers put in, having that accountability to take the course, learn it, ask him questions. Like, one of the questions I've got for you, Minor, is like, and I know we're not going to talk about it today, but for a future conversation is, what is a couple to do when one partner has possibly like has had some bad history with money, and then like talking about money can be uncomfortable? And how do couples face that? And on the one hand, I know that's a people oriented question, but on the other hand, it's a barrier to addressing the root situation of, the two people are having a different experience and they need to do it. So I'll look forward to learning more from you, and thank you so much for just letting me be part of this learning journey. It's a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate you being here. And for all the listeners, please, note that Monica has a coaching practice as well. And I'll make sure to include the link to her website. And I mean, Dale Carnegie trainer. I mean, and you guys have experienced, like you were able to witness, live on this, recording, how Monica was able to take something that is so logical and connect and create that people connection, right? So when it comes to relationships, when it comes to management, leadership, communication, all of those things, that's Monica's passion, and you can see how well she does with that. So I want to thank you again, and this is Minor Ramos with Trusted Covenant saying until next time. Thanks again.
Bye all.